as parents, giving yourself over to your child's joy and eagerness, and trusting that that's going to help them find their way in the world can be a scary thing when everybody else is just like pounding the pavement. Like, you got to helicopter this, you got to snowplow this, you got to make it, they got to get into the right college, you get the right job to make a lot of money to, well, they don't really have an answer after that. But how can we make it so our kids are going to be happy and productive members of society, choosing to do whatever is their calling? Throw out homework, worksheets, ominous buildings, hall passes, herds of students, grades, all of it. What would you build? If you start with the amazing thing that is a young person, how would you honor all of their strengths and abilities? How would you remember that this is about them? If Dewey was right, and education is not preparation for life, education is life itself, we need to do more than rebuild schooling. We need to rethink living. Welcome to the Education is Life podcast, where we are having honest discussions on the state of education, where it is, where it can be, and all of the stories in between. Right off, when students or potential students come into our school, they immediately feel at home. They can tell that this is their space. This is something that is right size for them. Even kids who have like kind of given up on school, they're like, this just feels good, and they end up not wanting to leave. And they're ready. They know that there's a better way. They know that something hasn't spoken to their soul. In fact, something's been kind of like mushing it into a corner, and they want to. They can feel those deep breaths kind of filling their lungs, and so they're ready to roll. The ones who breathing has picked up and started to get nervous are the parents, and it's a scary time. When you jump off the matrix, so to speak, and get away from what everybody else is doing with arguably your two most important pieces of your life, right? Your money and your kids. How does that feel okay? What's it take to feel okay in that market? What's it take to feel okay in that space? And it is difficult because it's not like the answer is going to come tomorrow, right? It's not like you sign up for Greenfields, your kid comes in after the first week. It's obvious that your kid's life has just changed. Well, sometimes it is. Sometimes that's all the longer it takes. But it's a longer term thing. And the life of a parent at Greenfields is not one of continuous joy. We actually have something that we share with parents called the seasons of Greenfields. And it's like when you first sign up, you give yourself the big pat on the back, and you're so proud that you understood that, traditional school will end up failing your child in some very critical ways, and that you've made the big step and you're doing this. And you're around all these like-minded people, and isn't this awesome? And then sometime around October, the kind of the blushes come off the rose, and it's like, okay, like everyone else is getting report cards, and they're like, oh, what kind of grades did your kid get? And you're like, they don't have grades. And you're like, maybe they should. Like, how is he doing or she doing? Like, I don't know. And all these fears creep in, and all of those things, because most of our parents have never been to a school like ours. They don't have an experience they can relate to. They just know that what they went through, not anything like this. And so it's hard to get their heads around. And it takes kids a while to get their arms around it. We have what we call freedom shock. When new Griffins come in and they're waiting around to be told exactly what to do, well, that's not what we do. You need to give yourself time for that inner compass to start to come back to life and start to point your way. And we'll ask you questions along the way, and we'll nudge you and stuff, but we're not going to tell you what to do. And so if your kid's going through freedom shock and you're nervous, there's just a lot of emotion going on, and it can be a hard thing to buy into. But what I can tell you is the families who stuck with it, the families who stayed in and knew what they were doing was the right thing for the future, they couldn't be happier. They see the lights in the eyes of their children and how excited they are about the things that they're doing. They see the outcome of their work, whether that's in an exhibition or an amazing writing piece or some side project that they did because they had the extra time after school. And they see the joy. We went through one time where we ended up having to do school at home for a couple weeks. Literally, we had 100% attendance every day. People, my kids still run to school every day and don't want to leave. And every year they're trying to talk us into doing a sleepover at school because they don't want to go home. And that's not against anyone's home. That's just about how much they enjoy the environment and they feel how much it speaks to who they are. And as parents, giving yourself over to your child's joy and eagerness, and trusting that that's going to help them find their way in the world can be a scary thing when everybody else is just like pounding the pavement. Like, you got to helicopter this, you got to snowplow this, you got to make it, they got to get into the right college, you get the right job to make a lot of money to, well, they don't really have an answer after that. But how can we make it so our kids are going to be happy and productive members of society, choosing to do whatever is their calling? And so how can we help kids find their calling when they're young and find their path? And it's not about finding a job or knowing like what your career is going to be. Society's moved beyond that type of a paradigm, but it's knowing about who you are and how you can add value to other people's lives. And if you know that from when you're young, you're always going to find a place to be effective and always find a place to be able to bring positive change to people. And that's always going to be valued. And so, yeah, it can be scary, but the payoff's amazing. So if you like what you're hearing, or you don't, and you want to come on and talk about it, go ahead and visit greenfieldsacademy.com and let us know that you want to be on the podcast and you want your opinion to be heard. I'd love to hear from you. So one of the exciting things about being a parent at Greenfields isn't just the experience that your kid's having, but it's also that you get to share your journey and your joy, not only with your kids, but with the whole community. And why are you where you are? What is your journey? Why are you doing what you do? And so whether you're I don't know, who have we had in, actuary, CIA agent, butcher, author, yoga teacher, whatever it is, wherever you are in your journey, being able to share that with the whole community and about the bumps you took along the way and the places sometimes you fell down and you didn't get back up, right? Showing that vulnerability and sharing your whole you with a community and the passion that you have for whatever in your life brings you joy. Sharing that with young people not only makes their lives broader and better and deeper and perhaps inspires them to get into something that you're also passionate about, but it also reminds you about why you're on the journey that you're on. And it makes your life that much more fulfilling to know that your whole journey is valued in a way that perhaps you haven't had a chance to share before. And to be able to share that with young people, I think is one of the most powerful things we can do. When we break down the walls of, adults must be the power keepers, and we open it up and we say, hey, life is messy and bumpy, and here's where I've fallen down and here's where I've struggled. That's empowering to kids. In a traditional type environment, traditional kind of parent child structure, the expectations put on young people just aren't reasonable. No adult lives up to the expectations that we put on kids, which is you need to be productive 100% of the time. You've got to constantly be getting A's. You got to not be goofing off. Nobody lives that life. We all fall down. We all fail. We all goof off. And the more that we can open ourselves up, the more honest our young people can feel that. And it allows them to approach the world with I wouldn't even call it confidence, right? It's more like a kind of an acceptance of the world and knowing that you can get through it, rather than something that needs to be defeated or overcome. It's something that needs to be experienced and thrived and nurtured. It's just a different way of experiencing the world. It's more honest in how we do it as adults, but it's not how we communicate it usually to children. So there's this one family, I think it was in year 2, they signed up, and their educational backgrounds couldn't be more different. One was homeschooled and had just like this verve for life that was just so obvious. And his wife grew up in Yugoslavia under Tito. And I don't know if you can imagine what schools were like there then, but she shared that, this was, imagine religious school, but 10 times more programmed. So not only did you have to wear the uniforms, but you had to walk in formation. You had just a super rigid school that you need to be, brainwashed, quite honestly, right? You need to be set up to be part of the political class. Yeah, so they find out about Greenfields, and he is super excited. And he basically drives the enrollment process. Their daughter, I think, was 4 at the time, maybe even 3. And so they come for, we have a commitment ceremony before school starts. And she has this just look of fear and dread and excitement and disbelief all wrapped up. Like, it was just like, it reminds me of one time I was asking a kid, yeah, this isn't going to be helpful. So they found out about Greenfields and ended up, he talked her into enrolling their 3-year-old daughter. And so they come to our commitment ceremony, which is something we do right before school starts, where we all kind of do this symbolic ritual of making a commitment to being lifelong learners and to supporting our children. And he is just like smiles from ear to ear, and she is almost paralyzed. Like, she can barely move. And I go over and I'm like, "Hi guys, so excited to see you. How's it going?" And for the first time, she just lets out. She's like, "I don't know if this is going to work at all. I am like so nervous. This doesn't make any sense to me. This isn't how school happens." And I was like, oh boy, this is going to make for an exciting year. And here we are 5 years later. She couldn't be a bigger supporter of what we do. They're super active in our community. She has come and shared on a couple of different occasions with the students. Their daughter's thriving. There's no more belief that maybe she needs to have a uniform and march in line. The proof is in the pudding on this one. The model has allowed her to really develop into a very strong and soft leader. And it's been a beautiful thing to watch, and to watch her mom come along for the ride and see how much it transformed her. And that type of thing happens to a lot of adults who come in contact with the model too. If you open yourself up to it, it will change you. It'll make you a better person as an adult, let alone what it can do for our young people. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe and tune in next time for a fresh new episode of Education is Life.